I would like to say welcome to all our listeners, all our friends of Peninsula Music Festival, and to all people who are curious enough to read about us and listen to this pre-concert conversation. Of course, my first programs were made in the summer of 1986. So I'm doing it for 32 times now, trying to create 3 weeks interesting festival. And so far, we are quite successful with that. Although it gets harder and harder to create freshness and novelty and interesting ideas within the same realm of normal symphony concert of symphonic music of specific size. We are not overwhelmingly a large symphony orchestra, not like we Moscow Philharmonic, which was 104 members. We probably have now 65, so some of the instruments are missing. Anyway, nevertheless, I did come up with an interesting idea for this particular festival. And the idea is to create programs related to musical capitals of the world, as we would be travel agents, traveling from one city to another and highlighting music written or dedicated to such a place. And so it is very natural, at least for me, to dedicate our opener to Vienna. So we will play Symphony No. 3 by Johannes Brahms and Beethoven's Piano Concerto No. 1 with a wonderful Russian pianist, Inna Felix, who actually immigrated as a young teenage girl to United States and went to various schools and conservatories around Chicago. Now she's a professor of piano at UCLA. She already appeared as a soloist with Peninsula Music Festival, so it is her return visit. Looking forward to that. And that program will also start with our usual Star Spangled Banner, which we always play in a different orchestration this time. Yeah, orchestration by Otto Werner Müller. Yeah, people were very, very pleased with that. I didn't know if it would be successful, but it was. And we will start with a short piece which called Vienna, City of My Love, which is a waltz. It's not really a classical. It's called Vienna, City of My Dreams by Polish composer Zierzynski. It is literally a vocal piece, usually sang by tenor with a piano or a small group, but there is also wind version and orchestral version, and we're going to do orchestral version. So it will be very nice, sort of going through the gate of Vienna. And then we will do the Brahms Symphony No. 3 and Beethoven Concerto No. 1. With the third symphony of Johannes Brahms, I have very personal relationship because it was the very first symphonic work I learned when I wanted to become a conductor. You see?
It's not an easy one to start with.
No, no, I was not aware of how difficult it was. Because I went to a professor of conducting in Moscow Conservatory to tell him that I would like to meet him because I would like to discuss possibility for me to study conducting. And he asked me if I brought anything to show. And I said, yes, I brought first movement of Third Symphony of Brahms. And so people who were in the room, there were two accompanists playing piano, and there were few more of his students, and they all started to laugh rather loudly. And then he said, "It's funny that you've chosen one of the most difficult pieces to conduct, which is the Brahms Symphony No. 3. So now the year was 1965. So you can imagine how long ago I studied this piece. But I still believe that it is absolutely perfect piece of music in all components, in its musical form, in the development of tunes, in a very rich message of this piece, in orchestration and all aspects. It is a piece which I call written by wizard, because of his ability to make practically every voice as a main voice. At any point you could choose, I'm going to highlight this line. No, I want to highlight this line. No, I like to highlight that line because it's also beautiful. So it is this combination of what we call homophonic style and polyphonic style, which Brahms made it as a fusion of styles in a most brilliant way. So looking forward to conduct this piece. Now we are going to program number 2, which is on Thursday. So here are some interesting points about this program. Point number 1, we will introduce our new emerging conductor, whose name is Christopher Wilde, and who happened to be here with me, participating in this conversation. I have to tell our listeners or viewers right away that Christopher was not aware of this assignment until 30 minutes ago. So whatever he is going to tell us will
Just like the real world, right?
Yes, it will be very spontaneous. So, were you surprised when I invite you to be emerging conductor?
I was surprised and honored that you were interested in having me for the full festival. Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
And, well, tell our viewers, how long do you know me and why?
We've been working together for 2.5 years, but of course I've known of you for much longer than that, because I first went to school I went to university 15 years ago at this point.
I see.
And I've performed with many colleagues who performed in your orchestras here at Northwestern.
I see.
Yeah. So I've heard about your orchestras and the stories that go along with that before I met you.
What stories?
Well, they're usually humorous, right?
Oh,
yes.
Well, that's
or
okay.
of great music making.
I see.
Yeah.
Very well.
All kinds of stories.
How do you assess your study here in graduate degree?
Very rigorous, I would say.
Yeah?
And very comprehensive. I've learned a lot here. And I feel like I'm very pleased. You don't always know what you're going to do or where you're going when you enter. And I found out more about this program once I was in here, and I said, wow, this was a very good fit for me. And I'm very lucky for it to have been such a good fit for me.
Well, I'm very glad, because from the day one I had a soft spot for Christopher for many, many reasons. And because he has this combination of wonderful music abilities and drive and desires, and he is a wonderful cellist too, played in every seminar and his instrument. But that is also combined with wonderful personal characteristics, because Christopher is a real gentleman, very, very sweet person, and also because he's Canadian, like my dear wife. So I have a little soft spot. Having said that, I have to make a disclaimer that this warmth of feeling toward Christopher never prevented me from being really tough on him
I would say that's fair. Yeah.
and demanding. So, do I hear your acknowledgement?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Therefore, I am pleased more than you can believe to see how much Christopher has grown as a musician and conductor. And so it is not a mistake that you are chosen to be with Peninsula Music Festival for the summer. Now, the piece which you will conduct on that concert is a prelude to Lohengrin by Wagner. The whole program here is called From Paris to Munich, but that's a title from point of view of travel agent, okay? From point of view of music, this program has another title, which is Thorns of Love. It is music of Hector Berlioz, Richard Wagner, and Richard Strauss, all devoted to love affairs in different circumstances. So we are going to start with excerpts from Romeo and Juliet by Hector Berlioz, specifically two excerpts. One is a love scene, and then the second one is a Queen Mab scherzo. Following that, we are going to have our soloist, Anna Burden, who will play cello concerto by Robert Schumann, who was also entangled in love. For anybody who wants to know, it is a very fascinating subject. But he was one of the giants of German Romanticism, and so his cello concerto, definitely a romantic piece. I waited very long time to have Anna specifically performing this piece, because knowing how she plays cello, she's a member of our orchestra. She is on a second desk, you know. But knowing how she plays, I'm so much looking forward to hearing her and accompanying her in this concerto. So after intermission, Christopher will conduct Prelude to Lohengrin by Wagner, and then I will finish program with Tod en Verklärung symphonic poem by Richard Strauss. So Tod en Verklärung, of course, encompass much more than just a love story. It is a life story from childhood through adolescence, romantic years, and then demise and ultimately death. So I believe that every note in this particular program is a jewel. It's a highest quality music. And of course we can talk a lot about what really happened musically between Paris and Vienna for so many years, for so many generations, how close, how interwoven those cities were together. I don't know, the most striking example is Beethoven, who has written his new revolutionary symphony number 3, and he wrote title Eroica, dedicated to Napoleon Bonaparte of France. Okay? And that was just before Napoleon invaded Vienna. And Beethoven ripped off the dedication from his title page, scratched Napoleon. You see? Well, that was just lyrical episode. Anyway, I like to go on now to the Saturday concert because it's also a very unusual program. So that concert is dedicated to city of New York. We will be in New York. And this concert will commemorate 100th anniversary of birth of Leonard Bernstein. Centennial of Leonard Bernstein. And of course, we will hear music of Leonard Bernstein in that program, but not entirely, because I believe it would be very important for our public to put Leonard Bernstein in certain environment and certain society to understand better what he wrote and why. Anyway, the first piece on that evening will be Adagietto from Fifth Symphony of Gustav Mahler, which, of course, for laymen would appear foreign, but not for music lovers who know not only Bernstein and Mahler, but both of them together. Starting with the fact that Mahler not only lived in New York, he was music director of Philharmonic Symphony Orchestra and he conducted in Metropolitan. So he was the star of operatic and symphonic scene of New York way before Bernstein. The next thing is that Bernstein was one of the very first dedicated agitators of art of Mahler, who recorded old symphonies of Mahler, who was a promoter of music of love, of Mahler all the time, one of the very first in the United States. And so here is a next connection between Bernstein and Mahler. The third connection is between them is their double life as composers and conductors. Both of them were very much conductors all year around. Both of them struggled to find time to compose. But nevertheless, both of them were very famous composers in their own time and location. But that is very similar again. Number 4, it is an idea of exploiting street music in a high-class symphonic forms. We all know that Mahler was criticized for doing that, for including very low-class bar music or street music, playing guitars or playing klezmer, clarinet, things like that, into symphonic world. But Mahler did it not only deliberately, but with a great ease and the most natural way. And so did Bernstein, because his music, which is most of the time musicals for Broadway, is based not on Viennese street music, but on New York street music, on American street music. And that is what relates him to Mahler again, great deal. And now and then there is a fifth connection, And that fifth connection I call DNA, because both of them under DNA came from the same breed of people, which we call Ashkenazi Jews, both of them. So here we have, actually I'm from the same block too, so, but I'm not at that level. Anyway, so you could see that it is very, very normal for me to start this concert with Adagietto from Symphony No. 5 by Gustav Mahler. But on a personal level, I have yet another reason why to do that. Because Leonard Bernstein was actually a person who brought me to the United States. And here you could see this picture from Tanglewood of two of us together. Can you see that? Mm-hmm. So that was 1980 when I was conducting a BUTI, Young Artist Orchestra Tanglewood, and I invited Bernstein to do one rehearsal with them, to conduct whatever he wanted to conduct. And so during intermission, we were talking about something, and young musicians had a little break. And so you could see that Bernstein played enormous role in my life, because he actually brought me to the United States and he gave me scholarship to study in Berkshire Music Center in the summer of 1973, and consequently 2 weeks later I won an audition to be a member of Boston Symphony. Therefore, you could see that this whole program is full of not only coincidences, but of extreme importance to me, to celebrate centennial of Bernstein and to include music of Mahler. However, there is another composer whose music we will play that evening, and that is the music of Aaron Copland. Because if you know development of Leonard Bernstein as a composer, he only was able to develop himself as a composer because of Aaron Copland. So his ascent as a conductor was mainly due to Fritz Reiner, because Lenny studied with Fritz Reiner at Curtis, conducting. But his compositional studies were only done with Aaron Copland. So now you see the whole evening will be also very interesting from many points of views. We start with Adagietto by Mahler, and then we will play First Symphony Jeremiah by Bernstein, which is also included soprano soloist, and soprano soloist is Kathy Pyatt, who lives in just north of Milwaukee, Cedarburg, and also in Door County. And she is not a debutante. She sang number of times with Peninsula Music Festival Orchestra, and her recent singing was the role of Elvira from Don Giovanni by Mozart, which we did concert performance. Mm-hmm. So she will be participants in the performance of Jeremiah Symphony. After intermission, we will invite another singer, Kevin Case, who will sing selections from old American songs by Aaron Copland. And we will finish with symphonic dances from West Side Story by Leonard Bernstein. Just by talking about all these three programs, I already feel that I need a small vacation.